Alright, back again for the second time today. And I'm going to be reading a novella that I've been working on over the past few weeks. Doing the editing on it because I've actually finished a draft, which this is only the second draft I've actually finished in my life when it comes to a book. So, the goal is to get this edited and finished hopefully this week. I wanted to be done editing it by yesterday, and I've only gotten through chapter 1 so far. So, we'll see. Oh, wait. I'm only on YouTube. Gotta get going on Twitch. Now I'm on Twitch. Alright. And Twitch is the only one that really counts, though, isn't it? Alright. There we are. So, back to work on a novella. I got tea going in the background. Inventing, English, writing, editing, romance, no, it's all of that. It's all of that. There's my tea. Okay, I'll be right back, and then we'll get into this. Alright, see if we can get this done. Now, I'm back to doing Twitch for the sake of doing this edit. Let me grab that light behind me because I gotta read it out loud to actually hear how it sounds. But, it feels ridiculous reading out loud to myself. Ordinarily, I would be reading this to the wife, but she's done listening to me work on drafts and listening to me work on stories that I never finish. She can't do that anymore. And it's romance of a sexual nature, so I'm not comfortable reading this to my mom, who would be the other audience that I'll be reading it to. So I think it's better if I just read it to the whole damn world at once and see if I can't make something good out of it. Try to make something with a good word feel. So, bear with me. Hopefully I'm audible enough. Go ahead and turn up my mic volume, I think. Hopefully that'll come off okay. Alright. Drowning. Book 1, The Lonely Island. Drowning. Garrett was drowning. It seemed only moments ago that his world had been made of hope and salvation. Moments ago. Maybe that should be moments before. It seemed only moments before that his world. Yeah, I want before, not ago. That seems to make more sense to me. And if it seemed like only moments ago, no, it seemed moments. Maybe only seemed moments before, seemed only moments before, seemed moments ago. Right, I'm on the first sentence and I'm already kind of doubting shit. I mean, technically third sentence, but... Drowning. Garrett was drowning. It seemed only moments ago that his world... That. I don't need the word that. Yeah, this is where we're trimming excess stuff. Let's go back. Get rid of that TT, get rid of that extra space. It seemed only moments ago his world had been made of hope and sunshine. It seemed that only moments ago. Do I put that now? It seemed only moments before his world had been. Could use was. It seemed only moments ago his world was made of hope and sunshine. Was. It seemed only moments ago his world was made. Instead of ago, I think I went before. It seemed only moments before his world was made of hope and sunshine. A southern breeze had carried him steadily toward his far-flung destination, warm and gentle as a promise. He was sailing to meet the fair Jocelyn, Princess of Ardenholt, born of the kingdom of Aldrin, his destiny arranged while he was still a child. Though only the second son, this union would bring great fortune to his kingdom, pride to his father, and ease to his mother's persistent worry. He had never met his betrothed, but he had studied her painted likeness often enough to feel as though he knew her shy smile, her lowered lashes, her gentle disposition, praised by every bard. His eyes were so fixed upon the horizon, where she waited, that he never thought to look behind him. Never saw the storm clouds swelling like a velvet curtain being drawn across the sky. He couldn't register the crewman's frantic cry to get below deck. A surge kicked beneath his feet. The ship lurched forward, then pitched backward so hard Garrett's teeth clacked together. The bow, once gayfully bouncing along the tides. Gayfully is not a word. But gaily. Brightly, happily, casually, joyfully, merrily. Ooh, I could do merrily. Once merrily bouncing along the tides. I'm going to stick it for gaily. Once gaily bouncing along the tides, it shot upward like a striking snake, climbed high into a sky that it climbed, should be climbing. Climbing high into a sky that had turned black. Better. Lightning tore it open. Thunder hit an instant later, a sound like the world being ripped in two. The crack of it felt close enough to sear his skin. Thunder rolled over the deck hard enough to rattle bone. The ship screamed. Wood buckled. Joists popped. Something deep in the hull cracked like a breaking spine. A violent gust slammed in from the west, and the ship tilted, righted, then pitched again, drunken and helpless. Another splintering cry. Wood grinding against itself. Another blast of thunder, this one so deep it seemed to echo from below. Sailors were shouting, but their voices were swallowed by the wind, snatched up and scattered into the storm. Garrett seized the nearest rail, cowering. Nearest rail. Comma there, break up the line of action. So that way we know he is cowering, not the rail. Garrett seized the nearest rail, cowering as the vessel fought a battle it could not win. It felt heavy now, burdened, no longer skimming the waves, but being dragged down by them. Then the bow rose once more, a fist shaken at the heavens, before plunging down, down, down. He clambered up the sinking ship, defying the sea as crewmen vainly struggled to unfurl rescue boats. It had all happened too quickly, this unnatural turn of the tides, the onset of the furious storm that battered down upon once sun-soaked heads. Again the ship cried out. One last sullen groan as it toppled over, as if to smother the prince rather than abandon him to the merciless mercurial sea and all its machinations. It's a lot of M's. Somehow he escaped the undertow, although it took every ounce of strength to fight it as the air tried to claw its way out of his lungs. don't know about that bit with the lungs. Somehow he escaped the undertow, although it took every ounce of strength to fight. Fight it. Maybe that's where his leg's on, just it. Every ounce of strength to fight as the air tried to claw its way out of his lungs. Desperately he flailed at the heavens as if they might turn solid enough to cling to. Grasping nothing, Garrett floundered at the surface as both body and mind threatened to fail him. The treasures once carried to secure his dowry to the fair Jocelyn now sunk along with all his hope of ever seeing her or hearing her soft, dulcet voice call his name. Lightning split the heavens again, and thunder rolled after it like the laughter of a cruel, fickle god. At a distance, he saw one of the rescue boats loaded with crewmen. They had managed to escape. The prince called after them, or at least tried to, but a great wave rolled into him and down his throat. He sputtered and fought just to breathe. When his vision cleared, he could see only black, lost in a world of ink. Ink above and ink below, where his words carried no weight. Each syllable was just empty air carried off by the wind and dashed by the peal of thunder. Do I want to say dashed by the persistent peal of thunder, make the sentence longer, add a little bit of alliteration and flavor, and give myself an excuse for referencing thunder so much in this chapter? I think I do. Dashed by the persistent peal of thunder. Another brilliant flash split the sky, and Garrett could barely make out the rowboat now. It had shrunk, and with each bolt of illumination grew smaller, until it was like a toy on the edge of the world. Then it was gone. He cried out, but the wind tore his words from his mouth as they were uttered. Again, he cried out again, because I feel like I'm either referencing things too much, like crying out, air escaping lungs, and thunder, and I need to have terms like persistent and again thrown in order to justify the repetition, or I have to eliminate the repetition. But if I eliminate the repetition, I feel like I'm dulling the action. So I think I'm going to double down. He cried out again, comma, but the wind tore his words from his mouth as they were uttered. Stretching out his arm as if to grasp them from so far away and pull them back by sheer force of will, only took him under. And I got grasping up here. He's trying to grasp the heavens. Now he's trying to grasp the boat. A lot of grasping. I could just say grab. As if to grab them. As if to grab them from so far away and pull them back by sheer force of will. Stretching out his arm as if to grab them from so far away and pull them back by sheer force of will, only took him under. That's a lot. Stretching out his arm as if to grab them from so far away and pull them back by sheer force of will, only took him under. That sentence is doing a lot. Okay. By sheer force of will, the will of the sea was infinitely stronger. Yeah, it works. Garrett was drowning. Of this he was certain. His last hope had faded over the horizon, and now his mind raced wildly, flailing as desperately as his limbs. Grasping again for anything that might save him. About floundering for anything that might save him. Splashing, struggling, thrashing, wallowing, stumbling. Yeah, okay, that works. Floundering for anything that might save him. Memories burst to the surface, not in a gentle parade, but in jagged fragments. Childhood laughter, his father's stern pride, his mother's pinning a cloak at his shoulder, the painted smile of the princess he had never met. None of it helped. None of it belonged here. His mind rifled through the moments of his life like a man overturning chests in a sinking cabin, frantic for a tool that wasn't there. In a sinking cabin. That is too nautical for the situation to actually be a metaphor. Overturning chests. I said burning. Like, it seems out of place, but it's a contrast. But that's the whole thing. Like, nothing in Garrett's sheltered upbringing had prepared him for this, the raw, merciless chaos of a storm-torn sea. He knew court etiquette, diplomacy, the draw of a bow, but none of that mattered where the ocean ruled. Shards of the shattered ship bobbed around him. Shards of the shattered ship. I like that alliteration. Bobbed around him, good contrast, good mouthfeel, each far too small to hold his weight. He lunged for one, but it dipped under at once. At once. What if I just said immediately? But it dipped under immediately, vanishing from his grasp, before popping up again and spinning away. Another twisted past. Caught in the storms. Another twisted past. Another plank. Another plank twisted past, caught in the storm's wild churn, as if oblivious to the fate dragging it slowly toward the depths. One by one the fragments drifted by, offering nothing. Something seized his ankle and forcefully pulled him under. Got under up in this paragraph. I don't need under and then line following it. But I can use below. Garrett had only a heartbeat to suck in half a breath before he was yanked beneath the surface. Below, beneath, under. Okay, so different words saying the same thing. Cold swallowed him whole. The shock hit like a blow to the ribs, stunning him. Pressure clamped around his head as the depths dragged him down, battering his eyes, crushing his ears. Blind and panicking, he clawed at whatever had caught him. His fingers found rope, coiled tight, cinched around his ankle like the grip of a hangman's noose. His lungs were already screaming. The world around him had become nothing but black water and a rising burn inside his chest. Reaching down into the icy death, he grabbed at the rope that had wrapped itself around him. His lungs were already screaming. The world around him had become nothing but black water and a rising burn inside his chest, and a rising burn inside his chest, and a rising burn inside his chest. Oh, that's the exact same paragraph twice. Okay. Well, one of those has to go. I think the first one. Yeah, I think so. Because the paragraph after that, the second one is exhausted and ready to burst. So that builds on that. Exhausted and ready to burst, he fought for the surface and crested it again as the air fought to escape his lungs the same way. Then I got lungs and lungs. So his lungs were already screaming. That's the subject. The noun is his lungs, the adjective being they're screaming. To escape his body the same way. Body. Let's use body. To escape his body the same way. Then air. Burst. And again, burst. Exhausted and ready to burst, he fought for the surface. Then air. He burst out of the surf. I mean, it's a great word, but I can't be using stuff that close together unless it's intentionally meant to be symbolic. And this is or poetic. And poetry is just pretty sounding words. He erupted out of the surf with a ragged cry. He was born out of the surf with a ragged cry. He climbed out of the surf with a ragged cry. He what? If he didn't burst, what did he do? He crawled upward out of the surf. Crawled upward. Crawled up. Upward. So if I say he crawled up, it sounds like he came all the way up. But if he crawled upward, he's in that direction, but not all the way. Right? Of course, right. He crawled upward out of the surf with a ragged cry, only to drag wind and rain into his starving lungs. Starving chest. Let's go chest, because again, we're still too close to the last time that we used lungs. It hurt. It stabbed. It wasn't enough. He flailed, barely keeping his chin above the waves as the sea heaved beneath him. Maybe around him. Because it's not really beneath him if he's in it. Like, let's go around. He flailed, barely keeping his chin above the waves as the sea heaved around his jaw. Beneath his jaw as the sea heaved, period. Heaved around him. Heaved him about. Let's go with around him. As the sea heaved around him. I don't think I have around anywhere. As the sea heaved around him. The truth closed in around him. Damn it! Fuck. As the sea heaved him about. heaved him about. When is it really heaved, or is it tossed? Can I use tossed? Tossed him about. The truth closed in around him with the same cold certainty as the depths. He was drowning. This was where he would die. Not on a noble battlefield, not old and honored, surrounded by his loved ones, but here, anonymous, forgotten, swallowed by a storm that did not care if he was a prince or a slave. His body would sink into the dark and feed whatever lived below, just as the sea had claimed countless nameless sailors before him. Tired now, he drifted more than swam. His arms barely moved, weak, trembling, pushing at the water in slow, useless strokes. Whatever desperation had kept him afloat until now leaked out of him with every ragged breath. Cold crept into his bones, numbing thought and flesh alike. Then he felt it again, the slip of something brushing his ankle, another rope, another inverted noose ready to suspend him toward the heavens like a reversed gallows. For one hollow moment, Garrett almost welcomed it. He could surrender. Let the last breath tear out of him like a final confession and offer it freely to the storm that had so thoroughly undone him. After all, what use was a second son? His kingdom would be more peaceful without him. No potential rival to complicate his brother's inheritance. No shadow cast by his unwanted existence. The thought settled over him like a cold hand on his chest. Brow. Let's go brow instead of chest, because I put in chest earlier. You want to be careful about repetition unless it's intentional, like the realization that he's drowning. Perhaps this was simpler. Perhaps this was right. A final breath trembled inside him, begging release. He gasped again. Some stubborn testament to will, to life itself refusing to let him surrender. His arms turned weakly, more instinct than strength, and a defiant breath burned its way into his chest. Again with the chest. So yeah, I use chest a lot. I use chests as a different type up here too. Overturning drawers. Let's try drawers. See, that's the problem when you get off on this writing tangent. Like, a word will stick in your head and you'll keep using that word because of the way neural pathways work. It's definitely a trick to train yourself to constantly be looking for new synonyms and new ways of new words. His arms turned weakly, more instinct than strength, and a defiant breath burned its way into his chest. More instinct than strength, and a defiant, breath burned its way into his chest. Okay, and he gasped again. Some stubborn testament to will, to life itself refusing to let him surrender. His arms turned weakly, more instinct than strength. Maybe I just get rid of all of this. Just boom. There I go, tightening up my word flow. Lowering my count. Because I want about 2,500 words per chapter. If I go over, fine. Under, not really okay. Always like a minimum of 2,500. But I don't want to fill it with too much. Like filler and repetition. His hand struck something solid. A barrel. slick with heaven's tears. Okay, a barrel is really not a full sentence. A barrel, slick with I used heavens already once in this chapter. Slick with the sky's tears. The skies. New. The wrong button. Slick with the sky's tears. Or maybe just slick with sky tears. With the skies. You know, the is like the most overused word. He gasped. He clutched. Don't want paragraphs that are starting with the same word if we can avoid it. He gasped again. He. No, that's not good. He could surrender. He gasped again. He clutched it desperately as it bobbed. I think the second one here. What if I went gasping again with a hyphen as some stubborn testament to will, to life itself refusing to let him surrender. His arms churned weakly, more instinct than strength. Arms churned weakly. Arms churning weakly. Arms churning weakly, more instinct than strength. His hand struck something solid. His hand struck something solid, a barrel, slick with the sky's tears. Okay, get rid of that. A, and say one final breath trembled inside him, begging release. And then this gets its own paragraph. A barrel, slick with the sky's tears. Do I need that first line on the page? He was drowning. It's kind of implied with this is where he would die. Let's get rid of that. That way I eliminate He clutched at it desperately as it bobbed and rolled beneath him, the storm trying to wrench it away. The damned rigging tightened around his ankle again, pulling with renewed malice, dragging him toward the deep. Garrett fought to brace himself against the barrel, sucking air through gritted teeth as he reached down with his one free hand, intent on ripping the rope away. But what he touched wasn't rope, not coarse fibers, not seaweed, not anything the sea should have offered him. It was rough yet smooth, strong yet yielding, distinctly the grip of 4 fingers and a thumb, human, alive, but not the hard, meaty grasp of a sailor. It was smaller, feminine, callous in ways no court lady or fisherman's wife could ever claim. A hand that worked, a hand that fought, a hand that belonged to the sea. I think this should be italicized. Terror spread through him. Still gripping the barrel, he plunged his head beneath the surface, cheeks swelled with held breath, peering into the ink-black depths. Lightning tore open the sky above, and for a single horrifying instant, its flash bled into the deep. Anything to far along the sea, terror spread into the sea. Lightning tore open the sky above. No. And for a single horrifying instant, its flash bled into the deep. He saw it, or rather, he saw her. The hand that seized him was a grotesque shade of green and black, so dark it nearly vanished into the dark waters. The hand that seized him was a grotesque shade of green and black that nearly vanished into the dark waters, framing it. Its fingers were webbed, the texture uncanny, slick as eel skin yet rough as stone. When he clawed at it, the grip only tightened, clamping around his ankle like an iron shackle. Panic surged. As he felt down the wrist, past the forearm, it changed dramatically into a smooth skin into a smooth skin. It's not a hyphen, that should be a comma. Soft, supple, the unmistakable slender arm of a woman. Fragile to the touch, but when he tried to pry it loose, it held with unyielding force. As the next flash of lightning tore through the sky, again, lightning tore through the sky. As the next flash of lightning erupted through the sky. I don't think I've used erupted yet. Erupted through the sky, the illusion of fragility shattered. Black stripes banded the pale shoulder he gripped. Let's take out he gripped. Black stripes banded the pale shoulders, cords of unnatural strength shifting beneath. Fair skin. And then her face. The storm froze around him. She was beautiful. Hauntingly, impossibly beautiful. Eyes wide with wonder, lips parted in something between delight and hunger. Her innocence was a lie carved in perfection. It struck him harder than the terror, this strange, surreal loveliness that made his will falter, made the last of his breath slip out in a trembling gasp. Another gasp in association with breath. Ah. I would sigh. Did I say sigh? Like the last of his breath. Before he could reach the barrel again, another arm slid up out of the darkness. Its hand cupped the back of his neck with a tender, chilling certainty, sweet in shape, sinister in purpose. Then it pulled. He was dragged down into her embrace, into the dark beneath the storm. Long nails combed at his scalp as he stared into her eyes with curiosity. Startled. Long nails combed at his scalp as he stared into her eyes with startled curiosity. Another splitting of the sky and an echo of thunder lit the sea as darkness ate away the edges of the prince's vision. Her fearsome, lovely face was framed by purple hair as wild as the storm. She was banded like some ancient sea warrior, like a predator of the deep. This is, again, where I'm talking about the face again, and I'm mentioning her bands. What if I said cheeks and brow? That way I'm still talking about the banding, but I'm talking about something that's distinctly different than the shoulders, and so that way you know. So if I say brow and cheeks, banded like some ancient sea warrior, like a predator of the deep. Brow and cheeks, banded like some ancient sea warrior, like a predator of the deep. So if I say like a tribeswoman, that's apparently racist. Garrett knew precisely what she was. A mermaid. He had heard the stories of sailors many times, and always assumed they were works of fiction invented by lonely fools. Now he was the fool to endeavor to fight. She pulled him closer, and he felt sweet helplessness in her embrace as she dragged him downward into her world. Her grip was like shackles, and I already mentioned shackles in association with her grip. Her grip was like iron, her claws like daggers, but it was her large, wandering eyes that pierced him the deepest. Lightning flashed again, and he saw her smile sweetly up at him. A sweetness undone the instant her mouth opened to reveal a row of sharp teeth ready to strip flesh from bone. She pressed that menacing, seductive face to his and kissed him. Her claws locked at the base of his skull, her nails digging into his spine. already used burst. And apparently I don't know how to spell threatening. Boom. I had my E in the wrong spot. Leaving him no chance to resist. As the last of his breath slipped from him, again I'm going back to breath, and the last of his breath. And didn't I already do that? As his consciousness began to fade, a sudden rush of vitality surged into his lungs. Back to the lungs, shocking his mind back into focus. I think I'm okay there. Do I use lungs on this page? A sudden rush of vitality surged into his lungs, shocking his mind back into focus. His mind shocking his senses back into focus. His mind, drifting moments before like the battered remains of the ship above, snapped back. Snapped into razor clarity. Razor-like clarity. Awareness surged through him as she coiled around his body with terrible grace, drawing him deeper into her hold. That startled me. Do I have a friend? Am I popular? Is there anyone? No. Stupid. Stupid apps. Drawing him deeper into her hold, into her embrace. I'm gonna go with embrace for the poetry. Cheddar found a friend. Let's see, where was I? Snapped into razor-like clarity. Awareness surged through him. As she coiled around his body with terrible grace, drawing him deeper into her embrace. Ugh, no, I don't like that. Coiled around his body with a terrible grace, drawing him deeper. Drawing him in deeper. Only now did he register the sweep of her lower form, brushing against him in slow, serpentine motions as she propelled him effortlessly through the swirling dark. She guided him, carried him, claimed him. Cold hands roamed his torso with unnerving certainty, tearing through fabric as though it were soaked parchment. Each rake of her nails left thin, searing lines that burned in the salt water. She kissed him again, stealing the last of his breath only to force something stranger, something energizing back into him. This is where I can replace lungs with just him. His lungs, just him. When she finally pulled her face from his, those wide, unblinking eyes roved over his exposed skin with a curiosity that felt possessive, almost reverent. I'm going to try something here. See, almost childlike. Fuck that. Her grip tightened, squeezing the air from him. Just as the darkness threatened to swallow him, her mouth sealed over his once more, wrenching him back into cold, shuddering consciousness. His mind spun, not only from the unnatural rhythm of stolen breath, but from the strange warmth spreading through his limbs, at odds with the freezing depths pressing in from all sides. Lightning tore through the ocean above. Again, lightning tore. Tore, erupted, flashed. I used flashed. I don't know if I've used flashed. I know I keep saying lightning tore. Streaked through the firmament. I spelled that correctly. Yay. Lightning streaked through the firmament above, illuminating her face. Hunger gleamed in her eyes, beautiful, terrible hunger. Summoning the last of his strength, he clung to her with desperate, trembling arms, as though she were the only solid thing in this drowning world. Don't need though, but she is the only solid thing. As she was, as she were, the only solid thing, as she was. Or, trembling arms. He clung to her with desperate, trembling arms as the only solid thing in this drowning world. That works. Cut down on my word count. It's a little bit more. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. He realized the price he'd have to pay if he wanted any chance of staying alive. What was innocence weighted against another day of breathing? Even if he was fated to perish like a mayfly, what sense was there in folding his wings before giving them one last desperate flutter? And so Garrett defied death. And fought the sea beast with the only weapon available, his hardened determination. As she plunged into the depths, he would plunge into hers with a passionate, repeated resolve. He felt the creature's grip over his manhood soften and tense in waves that matched her increasingly violent undulations. Her body writhed against his, cutting the black depths like a blade. Uncertain, cutting the uncertain depths like a blade, and soon he no longer knew or cared which direction the world held. Through it all, the beast smiled at him. Yeah, I call her a sea beast earlier. I just said creature. No, he felt the creature's grip over his manhood. Through it all, the siren smiled at him, the mermaid smiled at him. Let's call her a mermaid here. Through it all, the mermaid smiled at him, a hungry, knowing smile, one far too human in its desire and chillingly alien in its intent. With each wide-eyed look of wonder, and then mermaid right away, and then, damn it! Or she. That's often intense and easy measure, increasingly violent. Her body would through it all. She smiled at him, unknowing. She, just she smiled at him, a hungry, knowing smile, one far too human. The she. She smiled at him, a hungry, knowing smile, one far too human in its desire and chillingly alien in its intent. Okay. With each wide-eyed look of wonder from the mermaid, or each wide-eyed or each wild, reared-back flail of her head, he felt death and pleasure press in on him, and with each violent, serrated kiss, pain and life surged back. It was a dance between worlds, his and hers, this one and the next, and they spun within it as though caught in the tide of colliding destinies. At times he felt himself hurled through the depths at impossible speed, only to stop with an abrupt jolt that left them both stunned and gasping. Then, with another hard, sealing kiss, the storm-tossed struggle resumed. She heard the end gasping. She burst through the surface and rolled onto her back. And then burst. We're bursting through the surface again. I said, finally, she rose through the surface and rolled onto her back, holding them both aloft. Garrett dragged in the heavy night air and stared down at his savior and captor. In the starlight, she was almost beautiful. Arms spread over the water, her dark mane fanned out like a burning shadow. Her body tightened around him with a rhythmic, claiming pressure. He pushed himself upright, hands settling on the broad curve where soft flesh merged into slick scales. Sliding his palm downward, he found her smooth and slippery. I'm going to go with soft instead of slippery. A little less, ick. Sliding upward, he met the rasp of countless tiny scales, sharp as sand, yet too fine to see. I mean, sharp as sand and too fine to see are kind of implied, but okay. She breathed in the storm in triumphant gasps. Wearing a smile that looked disturbingly close to victory. "Do you mean to toy with me even more before you kill me, Siren?" he asked when breath and wit finally returned. Had finally returned, and then I got finally. Which needs a comma, I thought so. No. "Do you mean to toy with me even more before you kill me, Siren?" he asked when breath and wit had returned. She reached for him and righted her body, the two of them rising and falling like a single cork upon the waves. Her strong, rough, unmistakable feminine hands encircled him, threatening to squeeze the air from his lungs like the ocean itself. Again, the air from his lungs. Threatening to squeeze him until he shattered. until he broke. She kissed him, soft and hard all at once, her sharp teeth grazing his tongue. Holding him tight, she pressed herself to him. Pressed him further inside her, and brought her dark lips to her ear. The sea has given you to me, and I will keep you as my treasure, forever. Her voice was a whisper that cut through the storm and the fading thunder. Cut through the silence. Left, oops, that was lefty, left by the fading thunder. In the dawning light cresting the world's edge, Garrett saw an island rising from the horizon. Her mouth returned to his, and once more he was pulled beneath, into the abyss, into surrender. Garrett was drowning. And that's chapter 1. I'm mad at it. I don't hate it. I was able to cut it down from about 3,000 words to 2,884. It's not bad. I mean, that's my second pass on this chapter. It's not bad. Again, there's the repetition. Okay, just to see. I'm pretty sure I'm changing the name of the book from The Lonely Island to The Lonely Isle. Because The Lonely Island is Andy Samberg's band, which, funny, I think they're funny. Okay, but I don't know if I want my book to be named after a joke group. It took a lot. I thought I was going to get through this a lot faster than that. But it's an edit. Control C. No. No. New window. Alright, let's go ChatGPT. Actually, no, fuck this. I already got one open here. Novel feedback. Analysis. There we go. quick review and critique over Chapter 1 again. That's right. One of the reasons I prefer using my tablet. My computer is set up so that it does not take button presses, because I've had issues with my computer and humidity. There we go. There we go. Control V, paste it all in, and let me know what you think, ChatGPT. Page isn't responding. Of course not. Of course not. Let's quick wait. Okay, Drowning, Chapter 1, saved. Let's close that. Let's open Chapter 2, keep going. Okay. Chapter 2. Garrett awoke with a violent jolt, coughing up the sea that had tried to claim him. Warm air rushed into his lungs with a sting, so sharp it made even breathing hurt. The sand was soft beneath him, above a wide, unbroken sky. To either side, the golden beach stretched until it vanished around forested bends, the tree line looming like a crowd of silent onlookers. Okay, yeah, I don't hate that first paragraph. Sunlight wrapped around him like a lie, soft, golden, and comforting, making the night before feel impossibly distant, more fever dream than memory. His mind, overwhelmed, inventing illusions to guide itself through the storm. Surely he had survived on instinct alone. He let his gaze drift across the waves. Far out among a ring of red stone, something perched atop the highest crest, long, lithe, unmistakably feminine, a silhouette carved from gleam and malice. The creature from his delusions stared back at him. Then, with a sharp shake of her head, disgust, irritation, almost human disdain, she slipped beneath the waves and was gone. Cold horror knifed through Garrett's gut, and another surge of seawater escaped him. The storm, the sea, the siren, what she had done to him, what he had done to her, it was real. His stomach clenched violently. Shame and confusion flooded him. Violated and violator both, twisted together into one sickening memory. His hand flew to his chest and found fresh wounds carved across his skin like proof. He trembled. Suddenly the bright beach felt like a cage. He wasn't alone. No, far worse. He was trapped, guarded by a sea-born predator who would take anything she desired from him again. His legs buckled beneath him. His mind screamed at him to run, to flee, to find the mainland, to find anything that wasn't her. The most he could manage was a panicked stumble across the shore, away from the red stones, away from those watching eyes beneath the waves. He lurched toward the tree line, into the green curtain of vegetation that crowded the coastline. Instead of crowded, I want edged here. A couple of reasons. I use crowd up above, so crowded on the same page just seems like a little too much. And edged can be taken as a slightly sexualized term. Still waiting for my critique from ChatGPT for Chapter 1. The shore was no sanctuary. It was an exposed battleground, too close to the sea, too close to her, his captor. For hours he pushed through the underbrush, never letting the shoreline slip entirely from his sight. He always kept it at the far edge of his right eye, both lifeline and threat. Part of him watched for the mermaid, half expecting her to surge from the waves and drag him back beneath. I took this word out. Now I feel like I'm putting it back in, screaming back beneath. It's because I want that terror element. The other part clung to the beach as his only orientation. For hours he pushed through the underbrush, never letting the shoreline slip entirely from his sight. He kept it always at the far edge of his right eye, both lifeline and threat. Part of him watched for the mermaid, half expecting her to surge from the waves and drag him screaming back beneath. The other part his other motivation to cling to the beach was as his only orientation, preventing the forest from swallowing him whole. He pressed on through the day, forcing his way through the bramble and low branches. Okay. For hours he pushed through the underbrush, never letting the shoreline slip entirely from his sight. He kept it always at the far edge of his right eye. Do I need to say right eye? Like, I do like to be that specific, because then it gives a direction. But we really don't need that orientation. Just feel like we do. Like, I'm saying, like, he chose to go left first. Both lifeline and threat. Part of him watched for the mermaid, half expecting her to surge through the waves and drag him screaming back beneath. His other motivation to cling to the beach was as his only orientation, preventing the forest from swallowing him whole. He pressed on through the day. When was the last time I said his name? This is a long sentence. With a hyphen, with commas and hyphens and everything, oh my. He pressed on through the day, forcing his way through the bramble and low branches, clinging to the hope that the land might open into something larger, some stretch of coast that pointed toward escape. But after hours of trudging through the green maze, he pushed past a curtain of leaves and froze. There it was again. The same ring of red stone jutting from the sea, the same circular outcropping he had fled from that morning. See, and then I can see where I fucked up. So I got another paragraph. He had woken around noon, fled from that morning. So my timeline is fucked up. He had fled from earlier works. Earlier. His heart dropped faster than the sun bleeding toward the horizon. Because, yeah, I suddenly wanted to have, like, dusk setting in. His heart dropped faster than the sun bleeding toward the horizon. Well, naturally, it should. You know, if I split those thoughts into two. His heart dropped, period. The sun bled toward the horizon. His heart dropped, period. The sun bled into the horizon. His heart dropped as the sun bled into the horizon. As the sun bled into the horizon. I feel like I'm going to have timing issues with this chapter. His heart dropped as the sun bled into the horizon. This heart and bled put into the same sentence, but in reference to two separate things. I kind of like that. I do like that. He had awoken around noon, perhaps slightly after, and yet after an entire day. Half. Yeah, timing issues definitely exist in this part. Half a day of walking. He had still returned to the same cursed landmark. The realization settled over him like ice. The island was small. Shockingly small, a mile or two across at most. A prison painted in paradise's colors. Returning to the shore, Garrett fell to his knees. He watched the tides gnaw at the sand, and his hopes. Among the waterline lay tattered remains of ships. His ship? Perhaps, or the ghosts of others. He scavenged what he could. A shredded sail for a loincloth. A coil of rope for a belt. Not much, but enough to feel slightly less exposed beneath the indifferent sky. Lost remnants that had escaped the sea only to be imprisoned by it. By her. His eyes flicked anxiously to the red stone outcropping. Nothing. He half expected her to be there, lounging in mockery, smiling at his despair. But there was only the vacant rock and the restless sea. Her absence was worse. Far worse. A hollow ache gnawed at his ribs. The despair of true isolation swallowing up space inside him. He forced himself upright, shaky but stubborn, pushing the dread back where he could ignore it. His spirits were dashed, yet he moved on regardless. He remembered an inlet, a pale ribbon of water he'd glimpsed earlier, trickling inland a short way up the shore. If he was lucky, the salt might thin to fresh somewhere deeper within the island. He strode the shoreline again, this time in a kind of wounded defiance. One eye remained fixed on the sea, wary of any glimmer of movement beneath the waves, while the other scanned the sand for anything he could salvage. He found more rope, stiff and brined, and a few planks that hadn't been warped beyond use. He gathered them awkwardly in his arms, clutching the fragments of a ruined vessel from the broken pieces of He found more rope, stiff and brined, and a few planks that hadn't yet been warped beyond use. He gathered them awkwardly in his arms, clutching the fragments of ruined vessels like the broken pieces of a future he stubbornly refused to surrender. At last, comma, he reached the inlet, a narrow thread of water that crept shyly into the forest. Setting his scavenged supplies on the beach, Garrett followed the trickling stream inward, into the green hush of the trees. The sound of birds overhead, and the soft rush of small creatures scurrying through the underbrush, told Garrett there was meat on the island, meat that wasn't him. That small reassurance steadied him more than he cared to admit. More than he cared to admit is unnecessary. As he moved inland, the ocean's endless crashing softened behind him until it was little more than a memory. In its place, the trickle of the inlet grew louder, clearer, as though the island itself were letting him in by slow degrees. There we go. Here's a focused, honest critique of your Chapter 1, what's working, what's weakening the impact, and how to shape it into something truly sharp, tense, and immersive. I'll break it into craft strength, structural issues, line-level notes, and bigger picture guidance. Overall impression. I'm getting tired of talking. You have astonishing sensory control, cinematic storm writing, and an absolutely standout mermaid encounter. The chapter has real power, but right now it is too long, too repetitive, and suffers from fatigue. The emotional and sensory over-intensity means the climax doesn't land with the punch it should. The chapter could be legendary with tightening and selective restraint. What you do exceptionally well. Storm writing. Some of the best I've seen in amateur fantasy manuscripts. Your language is muscular without being purple. Example strengths. Lightning tore it open like a velvet curtain drawn across the sky. The bow has a fist shaken to the heavens. Epic stuff. Character psychology. Garrett's spiral into despair feels authentic. His status as a second son becomes important in the moment without slowing anything down. The mermaid revealed. You nail uncanny beauty, threat, sensuality, and dread. This is your strongest section. The shift from survival to surrender. The transition into erotic desperation is handled with surprising elegance and emotional credibility. It doesn't feel gratuitous, it feels mythic and dangerous. Core issues to fix. Yeah. Repeated ideas, words drain tension. The chapter repeatedly states, Garrett is drowning, he's going to die, the story is overwhelming, he's helpless, it's dark, lightning flashes reveal something. Each repetition reduces fear and urgency. In the first half, every paragraph as description describes the storm, describes helplessness. This makes the pacing feel like it's stuck in a loop instead of escalating. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Recommendation. Cut 20 to 25% of the storm descriptions, keeping the strongest metaphors and lines. 2. Too many micro beats in the mermaid sequence. Her hand grabs him. He sees it. He panics. He sees more. He panics. He sees her face. He panics. He sees her stripes, etc. You need fewer reveals with bigger impact. Pick the hand, the arm shifting, the face, the kiss, the teeth. Cut the extraneous reveals. It'll hit harder and cleaner. Pronoun referent clarity sometimes breaks flow. Example, he cried out again, but the wind tore his words from his mouth, stretching out his arm as if to grab them. Them refers to the words, but physically grabbing words is metaphorical. If you want surreal, fine, but it reads unintentionally confusing. Okay. Tone whiplash in the sexual section. The transition from terrified drowning to weapon of hardened determination is a bit abrupt in phrasing, though emotionally it almost works. I'm not saying to remove the erotic content, it is effective, but the language needs less euphemism, less modern terminology, more mythic sea metaphors. Right now it feels like two different genres briefly collide, which kind of works. Length alone is a problem. Chapter 1 is very long for a storm drowning sequence, not just for a book, just for pacing. You could trim aggressively while keeping 100% of the impact. Section by section notes. Opening, great, immediate plunge, sharp repetition of Garrett was drowning, strong hook, consider tightening 10 to 15%. Storm sequence, brilliant imagery, but too many paragraphs do the same job. Cutting 3 to 5 paragraphs will make the climax scarier. The rope sinking, fantastic keep. The mermaid's hand, phenomenal first reveal, don't change a thing. Body transformation reveal, trim a bit, combine a few description beats. Face reveal, perfect. Kiss, breath exchange, sexual struggle. This has mythic, siren-like intensity. It needs slightly more clarity in who is initiating and why, but the tone is strong. You can keep the eroticism exactly, but refine the phrasing. Sentence level suggestions, cut cliches. His life flashed before his eyes. Even though you don't use the phrase, you come close. Yeah, I know. Struck like a blow. Cold crept into his bones. Replace with fresher sensory experiences, like cold threaded into his joints like needles. Avoid double description. Example, ragged cry only to drag wind and rain into his starving chest. It hurt, it stabbed, it wasn't enough. This is good as is. You don't need the next sentence about the truth closing around him. 1 image per beat. Okay. Be careful with modern clinical phrasing. Manhood, hardened determination, violent undulations, rigging tightened, tested his lungs. Just needs smoothing. What to do next? Cut repetitions, storm and drowning descriptions. Sharpen the mermaid sequence by simplifying the reveal beats. Unify the tone of the erotic content. More mythic, less modern phrasing. Create clear escalation. Initial drowning, rope, hand, face, kiss, surrender. End the chapter 3 to 4 paragraphs sooner. The final line, Garrett was drowning, is great, but it feels like a reiteration rather than a punchline at this length. Final summary. This chapter is good enough to publish with revision. You are genuinely talented at sensory writing and mythic imagery. With tightening, this can be an unforgettable opening chapter. Haunting, erotic, terrifying, atmospheric. If you want, I can also edit a trimmed down version, rewrite select paragraphs while keeping your voice, do a sentence level line edit. For rhythm, clarity, and tone, help structure chapter 2 to contrast this intensity. I think I'm good for now, is how I'm feeling. All right. Let's get back to it. I'm on page 3 of 8. Got 3,014 words so far. I would love it if I could at least trim 14 from this. Lulu, please don't. He found more rope, stiff and brined, and a few planks that had been warped beyond use. He gathered them awkwardly in his arms. Clutching the fragments of ruined vessels like the broken pieces of a future, he stubbornly refused to surrender. I don't know if I like the word surrender here. What if I went with give up? At last he reached the inlet, a narrow thread of water that crept shyly into the forest. Setting his scavenged supplies to the beach. Yeah, scavenged supplies, surrender. I didn't need all that together. Too many S's. Setting his scavenged supplies on the beach, Garrett followed the trickling stream inward, into the green hush of the trees. The sound of birds overhead, and the soft rustle of small creatures scurrying through the underbrush told Garrett there was meat on the island. Meat that wasn't him. That small reassurance steadied him. As he moved inland, the ocean's endless crashing softened behind him, until it was little more than a memory. In its place, the trickle of the inlet grew louder, clearer, as though the island itself were letting him in by slow degrees. Letting him in by as though the island itself were let's go with whispering it's not how you spell its secrets. Whispering its secrets in confidence. After some time, minutes or perhaps hours, he had lost all sense of it. The thin vein of water widened into a modest creek. Sunlight. Again, there's that timing issue with, like, what is the sun doing? We already said bled into the horizon. What if I said dusk and stars filtered through the interlocking canopy overhead? Lou. Lula, hush up. Casting shifting bars of red and shadow across the surface. Small schools of fish flashed beneath the ripples, disappearing and reappearing among the stones like shy spirits. Garrett knelt beside the bank. His thirst was a savage thing now, raw and demanding, overwhelming even the faint recollection that he should boil the water first. He dipped his hand in. The coolness shocked him. Eagerly, he dipped his hand in. Eagerly, he dipped his hand in. Fresh. He cupped the water and drank greedily until the tight ache in his throat eased and the world sharpened just a little around him. The opposite intent. Sharpened. Softened. Just a little around him. These things are less harsh. His mind returned to the limited supplies he had left on the beach. He would need a shelter lest another sudden storm rise up and leave him exposed and cold. Rise up, rise up. Let's go with arose. Thus another sudden storm arose and left him exposed and cold. Then arose and exposed. That's a little too rhymey. So another sudden storm struck. Let's go with struck. Struck and left him exposed and cold. Noting his location, he followed the spring back to shore. Why is he noting his location? At the tree line, he tensed and spied out at the ribbon of gold that was slowly turning red as the sun set. At the tree line, about before the tree line, what if I said crouching before the tree line, he tensed and spied out at the ribbon of gold sand that was slowly turning red as the sun set. Slowly turning red as the setting sun. And then look at this paragraph. His, he. Yeah, I shouldn't have sentences following each other that sound like Michael Jackson laughing unless I'm trying to be poetic. So he, that doesn't work. And then crouching, that breaks it up. He would need shelter lest his mind. All right, now I got Garrett up there. His mind returned to the limited supplies he had left at the beach, on the beach. Yeah, this paragraph needs work. His mind returned to the limited supplies he had left on the beach. He would need a shelter lest another sudden storm struck and left him exposed and cold. He followed the spring back to the shore. Crouching before the tree line, he tensed and spied out at the ribbon of gold sand that was slowly turning red as the setting sun. Slowly turning as red as the setting sun. He was still wary of the siren, but there didn't seem to be any indication of her. Perhaps she had moved on from the island. Okay. It's a long paragraph with a lot going on. He cupped the water and drank greedily. Just start with the action, get rid of that he. Cupping the water, the prince drank greedily until the tight ache in his throat eased and the world softened just a little around him. His mind returned to the limited supplies he had left on the beach. Surely he would need a shelter. He would need a shelter lest another storm struck and left him exposed and cold. And so he followed the spring back to shore. What time is it? 328. Damn it, markets are closed. Fuck. I didn't mean to get this caught up. I meant to do a little more trading today. Let's see where we ended things. Up, down. Meh. A little bit up. Not a lot. Where did Novella end up? Damn. Oh, I don't know about this AI bubble. Hopefully tomorrow we see some positivity and ridiculousness. His mind returned to the limited supplies he had left on the beach. He would need a shelter lest another sudden storm struck and left him exposed and cold. What if I combine these two sentences? Following the spring back to shore, he crouched before the tree line and tensed as he spied out at the ribbon of gold that was slowly turning red as the setting sun. Turning as red as the setting sun. No, that sounds too much too. His mind returned to the limited supplies he had left on the beach. He would need a shelter lest another. Lest. Ugh, why do I suddenly hate the word lest? Before another storm struck and left him exposed and cold. Begrudgingly, he followed the spring back to shore. Begrudgingly, he followed the spring back to shore. Crouching before the tree line, he tensed and spied out at the ribbon of gold sand that was slowly turning as red as the setting sun. He was still wary of the siren, though there didn't seem to be any indication of her. Perhaps she had moved on from the island in search of more prey. Stepping onto the sand made him feel exposed, like he was one of the desert's. Stepping onto the sand made him feel exposed, like one of the denizens that scurried through the underbrush. Garrett scolded himself for his fear. Am I not a man? Am I not royalty? He muttered, louder than he meant to. Why should I cower to some sea wench while my feet are on the land? On land. while my feet are on land. Yeah, that sounds natural enough. His own voice echoed back at him, thin and hollow, before dissolving into the roar of the surf. The waves answered with a crash that felt suspiciously like mockery. Still, he forced himself to stand straighter, to breathe slower, to pretend he felt the courage he was demanding from himself. He found a patch of trees just beyond the high tide line and set to work. No. He found a suitable patch of trees just beyond the high tide line. No. He found a suitable patch of trees near the inlet and set to work. There, using driftwood and salvaged planks, he constructed a crude shelter. Little more than a lean-to, but positioned with thought. The front faced the beach so he could watch the surf. The back remained open to the forest, a dark tunnel of escape should he hear the sea hissing behind him at night. Should he hear something crawling out of the sea in the night? Out and in that close together don't really sound right. During the night. At. Should he hear something crawling out of the sea at night? He told himself it was strategy, not fear. His, he, his. Okay. His voice echoed back at him, thin and hollow. He finding a suitable patch of trees near the inlet. He set to work. He told himself it was strategy, not fear. I mean, if he told himself, then I could actually have a line where he actually tells himself. How about he reminded himself? He assured himself. Yet the image would not leave him. A dark hand breaking the surface of the water, fingers closing around his ankle, dragging him backward into the churning dark. A dark hand churning dark, okay? A dark hand, a murky hand. Yet the image would not leave him. A murky clawed hand breaking the surface of the water, fingers closing around his ankle, dragging him backward into the churning dark. The more he shook it off, the more vividly it perched in his mind. Bravery, he decided, did not mean ignoring terror. It meant preparing for it. When he was finished, once he was finished, Garrett sat inside the low shelter. He was finished, Garrett sat inside the low shelter. Content with his progress. Content with himself. There was no room to stand. There was no room to stand, but the sand beneath him was still warm. That's and he could stretch out his legs. Sand beneath him was warm, and he could stretch out his legs. Little room to stand. The sand beneath him was warm, and he could stretch out his legs. Evening passed slowly as he busied himself with survival. But we already have... Yeah, it should be night at this point. Night passed slowly as he busied himself with survival. Yeah, again, I got this whole timing issue going on. Night passed slowly. Too anxious for sleep. He fashioned simple traps for game and shaped crude fishhooks from splintered wood. By the light of a small fire. The work steadied his mind, but only a little. As dawn approached, the ebb of exhaustion, we'll go ahead and spell that correctly, overtook him. But sleep did not bring rest. His dreams were fevered, tangled with terror and something strangely sweet. He dreamed of the siren devouring him, of her sliding out of the water like some massive sea worm, glistening and cold, her beauty more horrifying than her hunger. In the nightmare he lay paralyzed. In the nightmare he lay paralyzed, forced to watch as she consumed him one limb at a time, slowly, almost lovingly. Years seemed to pass that way. He grew old and useless on the shore, a helpless amputee, nothing but driftwood for her pleasure. In the end he was bones, polished smooth by her hands, worn as jewelry. Even in his sleep his fear bent to her allure. He awoke near dawn. Again, time. Time is not my friend in this chapter. He awoke before noon. Trembling and exhausted, his heart thudding like a trapped animal. Without thinking, he seized the tools he had crafted the night before and hurried into the forest. He didn't dare look toward the water. The unease from the dream clung to him like sea mist, whispering that if he turned around, she would be there, waiting. More than once, he found himself checking his own fingers, making sure they were still attached, still whole, still his, and not delicately nibbled away while he had slept. How do I have more words? Damn it. Fuck. I'm trying to get less words. I was trying to get to at least under 3,000, and I've added 9. Ugh. He returned to the place he'd found the day before. He returned to the place he'd found the day before, where the inlet turned fresh. Yay! Digging beneath a cluster of flat stones exposed a handful of pale grubs, which writhed blindly in the light. They were disgusting, but they were bait. He skewered them on the splintered wooden hooks with care, trying not to think of how similar their soft bodies felt to his own skin beneath the siren's hands. From his makeshift loincloth, once a proud sail, now little more than desperation wrapped around his hips, he unraveled a long strip of cord. It wasn't perfect, but it would serve. He tied his crude hook to the line and tested the knots, tugging twice for good measure. The traps he'd set along the way weighed on his mind. Little snares tucked among roots, deadfalls balanced on brittle sticks. A breadcrumb trail of hope behind him. Maybe one would catch something, maybe none would. Either way, he had to try. After slacking his thirst in the cool water, he stepped to the edge of the creek. The current whispered over the smooth stones, clearer and calmer than the ocean that had tried to consume him. He cast his line and watched the grub drift lazily in the shadows. Silence pressed in around him, forest hush, filtered sunlight, soft burble of the water, peaceful, almost. Almost enough to make him forget the weight of the sea at his back, the creature who lived within it. He waited, and waited, and tried not to think about whose eyes might be watching him from afar. Every rustle of the underbrush set his senses ablaze. A shifting leaf, a snapped twig, the hush of something small skittering through the ferns, each sound jolted him upright as though it were the herald of some monstrous sea-soaked nightmare crawling inland to finish what it had begun. He strained to hear past the soft din of the forest, forcing his breath quiet, expecting, nearly certain, that at any moment he would hear something foreign, something wet, something ghastly moving where no ocean creature should be able to follow. But nothing came. Only the forest breathing. The weight of his dreams clung to him like damp cloth. His mind felt swollen from exhaustion. Several times he drifted off, slumped half forward over his fishing line, only to jerk awake with a gasp. A heart hammering, fingers blindly checking that they were still attached to his hand. Each time he surfaced from these brief snatches of sleep, his bait was gone, stripped clean by clever fish or else waterlogged and useless. Again and again Garrett reset the hook. Again and again he cast into the stream. Hunger gnawed at his ribs with slow, patient teeth. Fatigue gnawed at his mind with sharper ones. He could feel himself fraying, caught somewhere between terror, starvation, and the stubborn refusal to die on an empty stomach. As the sun rose to its zenith and speared through the tangled canopy. See, I already have him waking around noon. Again, I'm having that timing issue with the sun. Maybe I'm okay here. As the sun rose to its zenith and speared through the tangled canopy in harsh golden beams, Garrett's patience finally gave way. He reeled in his empty line and let the hook dangle uselessly at his side. As the sun passed, its zenith and speared through the tangled canopy in harsh golden beams, Garrett's patience finally gave way. He reeled in his empty line and let the hook dangle uselessly at his side. Enough disappointment for one day, enough hunger gnawing him hollow. He picked his way back toward the shore, back toward the crude shelter that now felt more like a coward's burrow than a refuge. The forest, once merely dense, now seemed to lean in around him, every branch a crooked finger, every shadow a watching shape. Along the path he'd taken that morning, he found his traps scattered where he'd left them. One was sprung and empty, its snare line snapped as though something had chewed straight through it. Another lay smashed against a root, the wood splintered as if something heavy had stepped on it. Something too large to be a rabbit or fox. A third had been dragged several feet, leaving a furrow in the dirt before the cord frayed and broke. Garrett crouched over the wreckage, throat tightening. These were not simple misfires. Something had been here. Something that didn't fear him, or worse, didn't even consider him a threat. His stomach growled, a sharp, angry pain folding him inward. Hunger sharpened his fear, but exhaustion dulled his reaction until both sensations blended into a single grinding ache behind his ribs. He swayed where he stood, thinking of fish he hadn't caught, traps that hadn't fed him, and a monstrous beauty in the waves whose appetite had nothing to do with food. He staggered back to the beach, hollow from the hunger and sleeplessness, an empty shell of a man filled with the echo of the ocean. There, in his tiny shelter, right at the entrance, laid out before the yawning sweep of the sea, sat a meager offering. 3 fish, arranged neatly on broad leaves torn from the shoreline trees. They were fresh, but only barely. The skin had begun to stiffen, and the eyes stared glassily upwards as flies crawled over them, unbothered. Garrett froze. For a long moment neither he nor the fish blinked. He shooed away the insects and crouched low over the humble display. A thick furrow cut through the sand from the shelter straight to the ocean's edge, as though something heavy, or massive, had dragged itself up the shore. His jaw clenched. A hot, childish anger flared through his chest. A gift. She had brought him a gift. Garrett snatched up one of the fish, fingers digging into the cold flesh. He wanted to hurl it back into the waves, to reject the gesture, the mockery, the claim she seemed to be laying upon him. Then he noticed the 4 small punctures on its sides. Perfectly spaced. Too perfectly. They echoed the scars across his own ribs. I think we want chest, because we talked about him touching the chest before, and oh yeah. His stomach twisted and roared in protest. The anger faltered. Obediently, helplessly, he lowered the fish. So now I'm her pet, he muttered, disgusted with the world, the sea, himself. He dropped the fish onto the leaves again and turned away, gathering what dry sticks he could scavenge from beneath the trees. Soon, another small fire crackled in front of the shelter, spitting and popping as it took hold. The smell of smoke steadied him even as guilt soured his gut. Guilt that survival now depended on the mercy of the very creature who'd nearly drowned him. He sat there long into the afternoon, fire warming his shins, hunger gnawing at him as surely as the fear staring out at the waves. Confident, absolutely certain that somewhere behind the glassy blue surface she was staring back. He took his first bite slowly and hesitantly, chewing as though every mouthful might suddenly writhe and bite back. The flesh was clean, brine and smoke, nothing more, but he kept glancing toward the surf between every swallow. Between each swallow, half expecting to see her silhouette rising from the waves like a verdict. Garrett forced down another bite, then another. Hunger won, but only barely. Hunger sated, but only barely. He wondered what price he was paying even now. Was this truly a gift? A lure? A claim? He wiped his mouth on the back of his hand, uneasy. The food sat heavy in his stomach like a stone with teeth. What do you want from me? He whispered toward the water. The waves gave no answer. He thought of the night before. Her iron grip, her claws, the strange tenderness mingled with violence. Her hunger for him had been absolute, possessive, inhuman. What was the cost of his freedom? Was he free at all? Garrett stared down at the picked clean fish bones on their leaf platter and felt a cold certainty settle into his gut. She had brought him food, which means she expected him to live, which meant she expected him to stay. And deep down, beneath the fear and anger, he found a truth far worse. He didn't know which frightened him more, her desire for him, or the part of himself that had answered it. It's a lot. It's a lot. It definitely reads better than Chapter 1 did. Chapter 1 is usually how I get my sea legs. Chapter 2 is usually where I find my voice in the story. I know I've got other chapters that are not as strong as this, too. But let's do the copy-paste. Pop it into ChatGPT. Took another hour to go through this. But still, using Twitch like this to edit, it's more effective than if I try doing this by myself. Like, if I don't stream this stuff, I get so distracted. It's pathetic. It really is. I hate myself for it. But even just speaking into the void, putting myself on camera, putting myself out there, it kind of forces me to do it, to get it done. Autosave is on. I'm good on that. Boom, turn that off. Boom, open up chapter 3. And it's almost 4 o'clock. Luxor 1, you've got a package. Okay. Yay, I got another package. Those are my pills. Those are my cortisol pills. Oh. Okay. Great news! Your application for sales partner entry level to leadership at Infinity Business Group was just viewed. Okay. That was at 1:31. We'll see how that goes. Chances are, though, with my luck, if they actually get back to me for an interview, it's probably a fucking scam where you gotta pay for service or some shit. Independent sales contractor from Indeed. That's a commission-based job. So, LinkedIn job alerts, customer service representative, Intellect Group, actively recruiting, easy apply. What you'll do. Help customers via chat, email, and occasional calls. Troubleshoot product or account questions. Provide friendly, accurate information. Log interactions and follow up with customers. Work closely with our operations team to flag improvements. Represent our brand with warmth, clarity, and professionalism. You are a strong communicator. Yeah. Patient, positive, and good with people. I can be. Comfortable learning new systems. Yeah. Organized, reliable, and detail-focused. I'm at least one of those things. Looking for long-term growth in a stable company, that might be a nice change. Full onboarding, hands-on training, above market pay, 48K to 62K depending on experience. It's not saying commission. Alright. Yes, sir, that is correct. Use that. Are you comfortable working in a remote setting? Yes, I prefer it. That's their only question. Okay. Sweet. Alright. So I applied for something today. Customer service representative. Alright, let's hope. Independent sales contractor. Well, that sounds like a commission thing. So I'm on to chapter 3. Tea is gone cold. Let's pop back onto Twitch. See, I don't have any chat to worry about. Alright. I think I need to take a break. So I've been doing this for over 2 hours now. Huh. It's a whole 17 degrees outside, which means it's gotten warmer than it was this morning. So, I'm going to grab my package. And I don't mean masturbate. Yeah. Days passed much like the first. Garrett picked his way through the forest until a crude map formed in his mind. His useless fishing spot became the central point from which he explored the island. Each day he tried new, narrow trails, setting traps with what little skill he had, only to return in the afternoon to find them scattered, his efforts wasted, and another small offering of fish or strange sea creatures left neatly at his encampment. ChatGPT is still waiting to critique. Okay. Alright. Score. I'm going to take a break, log off, and I'll be back. I'll be back later. Try and get through chapters 3, maybe 4 tonight. It'd be awesome if I could at least get through like chapter 5, actually. Alright. Peace out.